Hey guys!
So this is the 6465 notes, and it's Maddie and Remy here today because I know you think the voices are a little different. So we're going to show you how to do this. So step one is opposite sides are parallel, which Remy's going to write, and that's already labeled on here, so we don't have to write it. Parallel. So step two, our opposite sides are congruent. So we'll label that after Remy's done writing it. So this side is congruent to this side, and this is congruent to this because they're opposite sides. So step three is opposite angles are congruent. So Remy's going to write that. So, sorry about that. We didn't mean to.
Okay.
So it's fine. So this angle would be congruent to this one, since they're opposite, and this one would be congruent to this one. So that's how that works. And the last step is step four, and it's diagonals bisect each other. G-O-N-A-L-S. Okay. And I know a lot of you like to skip ahead just to write it down and not listen.
But you're going to want to listen to this one because it's me and Maddie talking.
So diagonals bisect each other, so you're going to diagonals. And so these are congruent, and these are congruent.
And the reason why we're using 3 and 4 is because we've already used 1 and 2. So, yeah, so we're done for this one.
So now to the next problem.
Alright, this is Miss Blaze back again. So they did the review with parallelograms. Now we're going to do our newer quadrilaterals. So then the new three quadrilaterals that actually fall under the parallelogram category are rhombuses, rectangles, and squares. So with a rhombus, you have 3 more properties. So with a rhombus specifically, you have 4 congruent sides. Okay? So those are already marked on this picture. All of these will be the same length. Property number 2 is that diagonals bisect the corner angles. Okay, so if I go ahead and draw these diagonals in, then I know that these angles will be congruent. And then if the opposite ones are congruent, they got bisected the same way over here. Okay, so these little sections, these angles got bisected. So I have all those congruencies. And then the last property of a rhombus is that diagonals are perpendicular. Okay, so that means that where they meet, I can put a right angle. There would be a right angle at all of those spots, okay? Now let's go on to rectangles. You already probably know a lot about rectangles. It follows all of the parallelogram qualities, just like a rhombus does, but then it has 2 that are specific to it. The first one is that you have 4 right angles. That is already marked in your picture. On all of these corners, we have 90-degree angles. We know that about rectangles. And then the second property would be that diagonals are congruent. Okay, so if I were to draw these diagonals here, the red one and the blue one would be the exact same length, okay? So then you have a square, and a square is actually going to have all of the qualities of a parallelogram, a rectangle, and a rhombus, okay? So right here, we can just put all of the above, okay? So all the properties of a parallelogram, so parallel, opposite sides congruent. From a rhombus, it gets that all of our sides are congruent. From a rectangle, it gets all these corner angles are 90. Our diagonals would be congruent. They would also be perpendicular from a rhombus. They also get bisected, and if all of our angles are 90, each one of these little sections is 45, and so on. We'll do more practice with all those properties when we get to some examples in class. So, last thing to do is that we are going to fill out this Venn diagram. All right, so what we'll do here is that we would start with polygons. Okay, polygons, we know a couple of those. We know triangles are polygons. Pentagons are polygons, and even a 32gon would be a polygon, okay? So now let's get a little bit more specific. Within polygons, you could also have quadrilaterals, which is what we are focusing on in Chapter 6, okay? Within quadrilaterals, you have parallelograms, and then there you have that rhombuses and rectangles are parallelograms, and that a square is both a rhombus and a rectangle combined. Okay, so it takes qualities from all of that. Now, there are examples on the back of this note sheet that we are actually going to touch on more in class. So make sure that you have these properties written down. All right, see you in class.